Welcome back to another episode of Pasture Pioneers. Today is all about sourdough. From feeding your starter to making bread and discard muffins, I hope you learned something new. Please hit that like button and leave any questions you have in the comments. Enjoy! So I have been making sourdough for about 5 years now. It's something I started making before it became popular and before it was trendy. I learned from my sister-in-law. I actually got my starter from her. And I made a lot of mistakes. So because sourdough has been such a trend, I hear from a lot of people that they're not sure, like they really want to get into something now. They don't need something else to do. And I totally get that. But what I always tell my students in the classes I teach is that once you get used to it, it's like riding a bike. You just get on and you start pedaling. The same goes for sourdough. Once you have figured out how to feed it, how to bake with it, it's really just a matter of just getting back on the bike and start feeding it again. So this morning, I am making our sandwich sourdough bread. This is what I make for the family at least once a week to go with supper, to make French toast for breakfast, things like that. I'm actually making 3 loaves today with the hope of putting one in the freezer. So one of the reasons sourdough became so popular is because it is more digestible, especially for people with gluten intolerances, not something to the scale of celiac, but intolerances. Some people can handle sourdough bread that's been fermented, especially if it's been a few days. You know, making bread is an art in and of itself, and when you switch to sourdough, it's more of an art form as well, and so it takes practice. Sometimes I see people give up on sourdough just because they had a few flops. They don't feel like they're mastering it. They feel like it's them. They can't do it. The truth is, anyone can do sourdough. You just need to know how your dough is supposed to look. You need to know how it's supposed to feel, and these things just come with experience. So this is typically what I am looking for. I'm mixing up my bread. You may have noticed I wasn't using a scale for this recipe. As a beginner, I do recommend using a scale, but there are some recipes out there that don't call for one. And this would be one of those recipes, but this is a bread that will be ready for supper. That's one of the reasons I like this recipe so well. So while my bread is rising, I'm gonna go ahead and feed my sourdough, get it ready for the next time I use it. But there's easily still over a cup in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some off, and that is what's called discard. I get that question a lot. What is discard? I don't understand. Is discard something you throw away? No, it's not. It's not something you throw away. It's just something you pull off of your primary starter. So I'm going to pull some off of this, and then I'll show you how I feed it. Some other questions I often get are, where do you keep your starter? Where does it live? I do keep mine on the counter. We make anything we possibly can make sourdough. I'm trying to make sourdough. This is going to go into my fridge, and this will stay there until I'm ready to pull it out to use it to make, it could be pancakes, it could be biscuits, it could be cookies, any discard or non-active sourdough starter recipe you can use this for. And so no, you would not want to throw this away at all. So into the fridge it goes. I cut corners on some of the rules that maybe some people would tell you absolutely have to follow. So I like to eyeball what I've got here. If you're not used to this, I mean, I have been doing this for 5 years, so I have familiarity with this. I'm just gonna eyeball this. It looks like I have about half a cup here, sourdough starter. I'm going to feed it half a cup of flour and then just slightly less than half a cup of water. Okay, so I got my flour in here, and now I'm gonna add my water, and I wanna show you the consistency that I'm looking for when I'm mixing this up. I even recently learned that you can feed it double the amount in order to make it rise faster and make it ready for baking faster, which has been so helpful. I have used that many times this summer. This is kind of the consistency I'm looking for. It's like a thick soup. This will be just fine on the counter. So far as like keeping it on the counter, I don't really have a lot of hard, fast rules there. I do try to feed it at least every day if it's going to be living on my counter. But I have also forgotten days, and it's just fine. I really think people tend to get kind of legalistic about this, or they think they have to hold themselves to impossible high standards when it comes to taking care of their sourdough starter, and the truth is, it's not that hard. The sourdough starter is an amazing asset to our homestead. Okay, so my bread dough just finished kneading, and so I am just going to be moving it to a greased bowl. I just realized I didn't grease that. This is how it's going to proof for the rest of the afternoon. And then about 2 o'clock, it's 9:15 right now. About 2 o'clock, I will move this divide it into 3 loaf pans. This is 3 loaves of bread here. So all I kind of do for this, so there's three loaves I'm going to get out of this. I'm just going to pull it off from the sides, grab a great big ball. I think this is about 1/3 of the dough. We'll find out. And then I just kind of like to stretch and shape it in my hands. Just kind of like a roll it up motion. And then put it into a loaf pan. Okay. So once again, kind of stretching it out. And then rolling it in. Well, as you can see, it's not really sticking to my hands. So I'm pretty confident I got enough flour in there. I'm going to cover them to just keep the flies off, and they will rise for another about 2 hours or so. Okay, so I just scored my bread. I think I probably got too much dough in this one. As you can see, it's kind of starting to go over the edge here. These will go in the oven and bake for about 25 to 27 minutes, and they will go perfectly with our supper. Okay, so the other day I made bread and I stuck some discard in my fridge, and I wanted to include in this video a discard recipe that we love and we use all the time. The link will be in the description. It's not my recipe, but it is an overnight blueberry muffin. I usually will mix this up before bed, let it ferment on the counter overnight, and then in the morning pop it in the oven, and we've got a nice hot breakfast of blueberry muffins. These are one of my kids' favorites. So this recipe, this discard recipe, does call for a kitchen skill. So I've linked one you can buy below. It's not the same one. I got this one from Aldi. So for the overnight ferment, what we're going to mix together is the starter, flour, and the milk. So as you can, I don't know if you can still see, but this is still pretty bubbly discard. It hasn't been in the fridge very long. I prefer to bake with a white whole wheat flour. I feed my sourdough starter unbleached all-purpose, and I typically make things with my white whole wheat flour. It's a way to get a little bit more nutrition in, but even that said, I have been known to still cook things in a pinch with all-purpose flour. And then one of my favorite tools in the kitchen for when I am making these quick breads, these muffins, anything I'm weighing out, I like to use my Dutch whisk for this. Comes together really quickly, really well. Just mixes up into this like dough ball. And this I'm going to cover and just let ferment on my counter. And then I will bake it and show you the rest of the process of making it. Let me know if you try these muffins in the comments. So this is what it looks like this morning. I am going to start adding in the rest of the ingredients so we can bake it. So one of the things we really like about these muffins so much is actually the texture of it that you get from the fermentation process. So when it ferments for at least 7 hours, whatever you're making, whatever kind of quick bread, develops this like chewier, soft texture, and it's really addictive. Like it's an amazing texture that you don't get just from throwing together your normal ingredients and mixing something up right then and there. Thanks for joining me in the kitchen today. We post new videos every Wednesday. Please subscribe, like this video, and we'll see you next week.